Welcome to Linda's Corner. My name is Linda Bjork, and today we're going to be talking about mental fitness. I'm delighted to welcome special guest Jenny Toh from Singapore. Jenny trained as a lawyer, but discovered her passion as a life coach. She is the director of River Life Coaching, where she coaches individuals to align their career and life goals with their values and strengths. You can reach Jenny at River Life Coaching, and I'll include a link in the description. Welcome, Jenny. I'm so excited to be visiting with you today.
Hi, Linda. Thanks for having me on your show.
Oh, it is a pleasure, and I am so delighted. Now, before we get started on all of the wonderful things that you have to teach us, I have never been personally to Singapore. The closest I have ever been is Hong Kong, and that's still 1,600 miles away. Would you tell me what is it like in Singapore?
Well, when people say Singapore and they try to look it up on the map, they're like, I can't see it. So that's why we also have this little name called we are the little red dot. Then in
I
the map, we were
like
just
that.
virtually a dot. If you've been to Hong Kong, it's roughly similar. It's very cosmopolitan. There's a lot of buildings, but it is also very clean and safe. And yeah, it's a place I call home.
Oh, that's beautiful. How lovely. It's delightful to be able to connect with people from around the world. It helps the world feel a little smaller, and it helps us to feel like we're all friends and we're all in this together. So, what a beautiful thing. Well, thank you so much for sharing. So, let's talk about mental fitness. Now, I was so intrigued on your introduction that you talked about helping introverted Christian women. And I thought that was such an interesting way to put it. And I would say I'm an introverted Christian woman, and it takes me effort to step outside of my comfort zone. So will you tell me a little bit about how that became a focus and what that means to you?
Well, yeah, thanks for raising that up. And it's nice to meet with a fellow introvert. Well, you can guess why that came about. I am also an introvert. And to be honest, it's a double whammy because when I was a child, I was very shy. So there's a common misconception about introverts is that introverts are shy. That's not necessarily the case, as you would have known as well. But I was shy and I'm also an introvert. But over the years, as I've grown up and become an adult, I've overcome the shyness, but I remain an introvert. So the meaning of introversion is not so much that you're shy and you're quiet, although that some introverts show that trait. It's more that you draw your energy from within. So let's just say, I'm giving a presentation to a large group of people. That's fine. I feel energized. I feel enthusiastic. But after it's done, I need to go away somewhere and recharge just by myself. So that's introversion. Whereas for extroverts, they get their energy being among people. They get energized that way. So that's just a simple description of introverts. Why am I coaching introverted Christian women? Is because I'm one. And I also found that in my career as an attorney, it was quite difficult being an introvert because a lot of times you are supposed to be outspoken, assertive. So it's pushing me outside of the comfort zone. I love what I did then. It's something I was good at. But at the same time, the energy, I felt an energy drain each time. So I needed to go within myself to find that rest and refreshment. So I coach introverted women simply because to tell them that you can find your voice or define your success uh, in your own way. You don't have to be loud. I think a lot of us try and push ourselves to be heard, just like the others, and then we find that our energy is drained. So you don't have to do it that way. Introverts are great in building one-to-one, close, intimate relationships. And that is what is really needed right now because all of us feel disconnected with our family and friends due to COVID.
Yes, I love that. And I love the explanation between what an introvert and what an extrovert really are. Because I agree with you that there is a huge misconception that that means that you're not able to reach out and connect. And you talked about you can talk to large groups, you can do great things. It just is that energy source. It requires some peace and some quiet and some recharging. So thank you so much for that clarification. I'm sure a lot of people are confused about that. Can we talk about? You said that we have saboteur voices in our minds that tell us that we're not good enough and that we won't succeed. And how do we quiet that voice?
Yes, I heard that voice come up a lot in my life because I tend to have a perfectionist trait. So, I feel that, especially when I'm starting out last year in my coaching business, I felt that, oh, I am not good enough. I'm not ready to put this out there to everyone. What if someone thinks that, I'm a fraud or I'm an imposter? So those voices come up. And if you take a step back, this inner judge or inner critic isn't there to help you. It may sound like it's trying to protect you, but if you take a step back and really think about it, um, it's not helping you at all. It comes from your own self doubt and insecurities. So, how did I quieten that voice? Was to recall my purpose. So, why did I make a shift from leaving my legal career to be a life coach? I'm a Christian, and after a lot of prayer and the Holy Spirit's prompting, I believe that this is my purpose to help individuals also find out what their values are and to align their lives with their values. So it's for me, it's a heart driven purpose as a higher calling. And I kept reminding myself why I'm doing that. And that's how I calm down the inner judge voice and to focus on my purpose in order to be able to move forward.
Wow, that's beautiful. And working for a purpose, that changes everything. Being able to have meaning and purpose and direction in our lives, and how that gives strength to be able to conquer those inner voices. And I have had those voices that just say, you're not good enough, you can't do this, you're never going to be successful. I've struggled with that forever. And it's a process to be able to work through. And I found that sometimes we just deal with it. We don't try to work through it. We just listen to the voices. And I think your idea of following, if you have a purpose, if you have meaning, if you have direction, and if you're trying to reach out and help other people, sometimes that helps us get over ourselves so that we can
Yes.
we can do something. So thank you. That is absolutely beautiful. And you mentioned the word imposter, and you talk about an imposter syndrome. And I thought that was a beautiful choice of words. I know I felt that way. I use the word fraud, where it feels
Yes.
like what I'm trying to portray on the outside as someone who is put together and, knows things and is worthy of your attention or whatever, and inside I feel like, if they really knew I am such a loser, there's nothing in here worth looking at. So, that is amazing.
Yes. Well, I know imposter syndrome has come up a lot right now in social media, and everyone's talking about it because due to COVID, I think a lot of us, especially introverts, we tend to even delve deeper into ourselves and start, really reflecting on where we are in our lives and all that. So how I see imposter syndrome is there's two parts to it. One, like you said, I feel I'm a fraud, and then there's the other part which is more along the lines like, what if others find out I'm a fraud? So you are worried internally, you have your self doubt, but at the same time, you're thinking, oh, what if others find out? That and For me as a perfectionist, that adds on another layer to it because, like I said, unless I feel something's really perfect, then only I'll be able to move forward. So I've learned over the years that you don't need it to be perfect. You just need it to be good. And even if it's not good, the area of growth is to try and just to learn and just to put it out there. And if you don't succeed, you learn from it. That's how we grow by holding back and just having all this self doubt. If you think about it, no one's going to benefit. If you want to help people like I do, and I hold myself back, I'm not able to help anyone. But if I put myself out there, like talking to you right now, Linda, and be vulnerable, your listeners here, they might resonate, they might agree with what I said, and they might feel encouraged that, oh, we all have struggled with this imposter syndrome thinking. We all struggle with this inner judge who's very critical of us. So, how do we move forward? We just remember to be kind and compassionate to ourselves. And for believers, remember how God sees us. We are so precious to Him. So why do we devalue that by being so harsh on ourselves? Yeah, so it's just a slight change in perspective.
Isn't that interesting? It is a slight change, but it makes all the difference. That is amazing. I've heard now you talk about perfectionism, and I talk about perfectionism as well, and I've talked to other people who talk about perfectionism. And what is your definition? Because I see them slightly change from person to person. So is yours that it has to be perfect or it's a failure, that dichotomy kind of a perfection?
Mine's more like, it really has to be perfect. So I tend to analyze it because I'm also a thinker. I tend to analyze it, and did I cover all aspects of it before it goes out? Do I have my plan A, B, C, D? And if I don't have all that, then I'm not comfortable. So it's maybe my idea of it is I tend to overthink, and the overthinking actually paralyzes me, and I'm not able to put it forward. So right now, when I see myself overthinking things, then I'm like, you know why not just go ahead and try it out? What's the worst that can happen? Then of course I play with the what's the worst that can happen, and sometimes it really can be that bad, but then I make it fun. It just goes spiral downhill, and then it just sounds so ridiculous that I'm thinking, actually, what's going on here? It's not going to happen that way. And that just makes that just makes that whole idea that it has to be perfect sound a bit silly. Yeah, and that's an area of growth for me.
Oh, I love that. I find also sometimes if I say the things that make sense in my head, if I say them out loud, they do sound kind of silly. Like I've had thoughts like, for example, I am a believer and I feel like, God loves his children, except me. He doesn't love me because I'm not lovable. I was not lovable, obviously. And when you say that out loud, it sounds really silly. It's like he's playing a game. Like, I have a little doggy and he won't bite you and he won't bite you, but he will bite you. But somehow when I say it inside my head, oh, that made perfect sense. That made perfect sense for a long time. And so the idea of kind of taking those inner voices and saying them out loud can help us realize, that actually is a little bit silly. Um, so coming with to grips with perfectionism. So a lot of people feel like you do that they want to do a super good job. And I try to distinguish between perfectionism, which I put it as two ways. It's either perfect without flaw or it's a failure. So if it's not perfect, then I'm a failure. And those kinds of things are very challenging because we actually never can do something without any flaws at all. And then we feel like failures all the time. And so I think that's different than striving for perfection. I think it's wonderful to want to do a really good job. I appreciate people who want to do a good job. I like that better than people who are just slackers and yeah, whatever, it'll do. Some other people define perfectionism as waiting, like, I will be happy when. I will be happy when, and putting happiness in the future rather than being happy now. So, as we put all of those things together, however you define it, perfectionism is not our friend.
Yes, and as believers, we know we are not perfect. We're only made perfect in Christ. So why put all that added pressure on ourselves? Yeah, I like what you said when and reflecting back about when the inner voice, when you say it out loud, uh, it loses its hold on you because it sounds ridiculous. And for me as a coach, I give my clients this safe space, and when they say aloud their fears, their insecurities, and I reflect that back to them in a gentle, non-judgmental way, they realize that, oh, hearing their own words, their own thoughts coming from another person, it just sounds nonsensical. And they realize, why was I thinking about this all along? So that's the power of coaching, when you take your own perspective all in your head and it comes out, and you can call it bluff, so to speak. You can see it for what it really is.
That is beautiful. Calling its bluff. And sometimes our inner thoughts, they really are. It is a bluff. It is not true. It's not real. Our feelings are very, very real, but it doesn't mean that the thoughts behind them are true. And I think that's a distinction. It's not dismissing or belittling that someone feels a certain way. It's finding the root of those feelings and
Yes.
saying, that actually is not the problem that you think it is.
Yes. And like what you said, Linda, I am unlovable. God doesn't love me. And
Mhm.
you can ask yourself, is this true? I guess for someone who's really um hijacked by this feeling, they will say, yes, it is true. But then you probe that person a bit more. Is it true all the time? And if the person still says, yeah, it's true all the time, then you bring that person back to an experience, maybe from a childhood where that person really felt loved. I mean, you have to be careful depending on the childhood of that person, but you bring that person to a happy experience where that person really felt love, could be loved by a pet. And then you ask this question again: is it true that you're not lovable? So once you challenge that thought of I am not lovable by bringing back to an instance, a situation that you felt you actually love, that creates that light, that shines that light over that darkness. Then oh, I was loved when my dog played with me. I was loved when my mother brought me out to buy ice cream. So you discover that you have a lot more situations where you're loved. Then when you come back again and say, am I unlovable? No, that's not true. Some people don't like me, but that's fine. It doesn't make me unlovable, full stop. So the issue is we are all so busy, we don't really take this time to reflect. And when you have strong emotions, you tend to be hijacked by it, and then your thoughts go spiraling downhill, and it just gets more and more negative. But if you are able to suspend judgment over that thought, suspend the whole over that thought, and just ask a simple question: is this true all the time?
Is this true all the time? Is that your go to for each thoughts that we have?
I wish I said that I myself have all the time to do that. But what I do is that when I feel the negative emotion, it shows up in our body. So when I realize that if my shoulders are tensing up, I know it's stress. So I'll just stop and I take deep breaths and I ask myself, where is this stress coming from? And sometimes just doing that, you realize that, oh, okay, this stress could be caused by this conversation with this difficult person. um, then you take a step back and see how better you can communicate with this person, rather than I'm stressed, I still have to talk to this person, it just gets worse. So it's just a matter of pausing, a bit like short circuiting that emotion. I'm not saying you don't acknowledge, you don't feel that emotion, but short circuiting, your immediate reactive action, taking a pause and then choosing a proactive action, one that is more beneficial for you, that's calmer, that's more peaceful. So again, that takes a lot of discipline, and like physical fitness, you need to exercise regularly. So for mental fitness, you need to practice this pausing, taking deep breaths, and actually questioning your thoughts instead of just taking them as the absolute truth. So I wish I can say I have time to stop and say, is it true? Is it true? But no, I have time to at least just pause and take a deep breath and just calm myself down. Yeah.
That is fantastic. So I'm recognizing a pattern of becoming aware and doing some little self-analyzing and also working on we often we can spend our whole lives just running on subconscious programs. You just react. We just react. It just comes naturally. And to be able to make that switch into using our conscious mind and choosing rather than just reacting, and that does take some awakening, because the autopilot that we just run on, it runs really easy. I mean, someone can say something and I can react, and I didn't even think about it. I just did it. And to stop and to become aware and then to realize, oh, wait, I don't have to just react. I get to choose my response. And that's a beautiful thing.
Yes. Yes. And a lot of people say, I don't have a choice in this. But the fact that you say you don't have a choice in this, you're making a decision not to act. So it's just trying to see. We all have choices. When you say that, I have no choice, I have to do this. Really? Again, really? Don't you have a choice? I mean, there are difficult circumstances where you feel that your choices are limited, but still you can make a choice as to how you want to look at it. Do you want to look at it to see that, this is it, I'm stuck, there is no way out? Or do you want to look at it at, yes, this is a difficult season in my life right now, but I trust there will be an end to this difficult season, and I will get out of it. So it puts things in a different perspective. So your choice can be the way I look at it.
That is incredible. And that reminds me of Viktor Frankl's book, Man's
Yes.
Search for Meaning, where he was in you talked about choices, and you're right. Sometimes our choices are limited for real. And he was in a concentration camp. His choices
Yes.
were very, very, very limited. But he said, even when our choices are limited, there's still one choice that we have, and that is how we respond.
Yes.
And that choice nobody can take away. They couldn't even take
Yes.
that away in the prison camps.
Yes. But again, that takes a lot of discipline, a lot of mental discipline, and also you are very grounded. He was very grounded in his beliefs. So when a person is very grounded in their beliefs and also their values and their purpose in life, difficulties come, but you keep the values and the purpose as your compass. So you know that it's still a journey. There's hardship, but as long as you know where you're going, it somehow makes the journey lighter. Yeah.
That is amazing. So I think then a very important process is to find our purpose and our values and what matters to us, something to be grounded, something to connect to, something to be grounded, something that gives us strength. Like as believers, part of what gives me my strength is my belief in God and belief in a purpose in life. So having something like that is very helpful to get plugged into, to give a place of grounding, a foundation.
Yes, that's true. I mean, for believers, we ultimately want to be able to meet with our good Lord and say, and hear Him tell us, well done, good and faithful servant. So we don't have to do big things. I mean, if you're a stay at home mom, I was a stay at home mom in a period of my life when my firstborn was born. Um, I didn't do big things that, but I was looking after my son with love, and I spent all my time with him, and I imagine that God looking down at me is, well done, as a mother, because I give him so much love. So just be kind to yourself. Sometimes I think, particularly as women, we tend to take on a lot of responsibilities. We also have a lot of expectations on ourselves. Even if you think about it, it's not expectations of others, it's what we think is a good mother, is a good wife, is a good employee. We put a lot of pressure on ourselves. But, the Lord loves us because we are His creation.
That is fantastic. You touched on so many important concepts in that conversation here. And when you said that you weren't doing something important because you were taking care of your child, I believe that the world would agree with that statement, but I believe that God would not, because I can't think of anything that's more important than raising and loving and taking care of children. And I think part of of what you do is helping women to be able to find that balance of worth and self purpose, and finding, how do I balance work, and how do I balance home, and how do I balance thing, and if I am a stay at home mom, how do I find value and purpose when the world defines success as money, and when we're doing something that doesn't earn money, then the world says then that is of no value. But I think that there are things far more valuable than money. So, how would you help someone who is trying to find this balance and find self worth?
Yeah, interesting that you say that, the world sees success as financial wealth, and I guess your achievements and all that. So I work with my clients to discover what success means for themselves personally. So I take them through visualization exercises to see what's an ideal day for them in the future that they really feel at peace and feel absolute joy. So I'm not even saying, what do you want to do 5 years down the road? It's just take a snapshot of a day in the future of what you think your ideal life is. And those feelings come up. Some of them say, I am spending time with my husband and we're both uh, painting if they're creative, and so you draw from that. So actually, what are the values there? So for that person, the value is the value that how she defines success is actually having a very good marital relationship. Again, the world would say that, okay, being married, right? What's so difficult about it? But you, Linda, you know that marriage nowadays, right? It's really there are a lot of issues with marriage, and it's not easy. So again, have that reflection and be comfortable to define success for yourself. Yes, there's the worldly pressure to say, you have to be successful if you meet criteria A, B, C. But who's to say that you have to live your life that way? So it takes, again, it comes back to your beliefs and who you how you understand your self-worth. Whose eyes are you looking through to see your self-worth? I think that's the part will trigger that awareness, and they give you that confidence to then slowly work out what does success mean to me.
That is beautiful. And I agree. We have without even realizing it, we're trying to impress a certain group, and there is absolutely nothing we can do that's going to impress every group and every person. So we're trying to impress, who are we trying to impress? What group are we trying to impress? And if we can get the confidence to say, actually, I want to impress myself. I
Mm,
just want to be happy. I'm not trying to find some external source to tell me that I'm good enough or that I'm successful or that whatever, but I can feel it. I can feel it in my heart. I feel fulfilled. I feel happy. I feel at peace. And as believers, we have another source that we can try to impress, if you want to call it, or please, and that is what I'm doing pleasing God? And I think if we look at those sources, then we find more fulfillment in our life, because money is great. Money's great, but it isn't the answer to everything. There are so many other things in life that bring fulfillment and joy and peace. And I think sometimes we forget to look at the whole picture. We get caught up in trying to impress what other people say is success.
mm, mm. That's beautiful, Linda. And then when you were sharing that, the words audience of one. So like you said, am I doing this for myself? So again, it's an audience of one. And then if am I doing this for God? It's an audience of one. And if you are just thinking maybe you're doing this for your child, then your child is that audience of one. So it just makes it more focused. And you don't have to please everyone. You just have to please that audience of one, which can be yourself, which can be God, or which can be a loved one. Yeah.
Oh, I like that. There's a line in the movie called The Greatest Showman where it says, "You don't have to make everyone love you, just a few good people." So that's beautiful. An audience of one. I love it. I love it. Is there anything else
You.
you want to cover? Or are we good to go?
No, we're good to go. I mean, I really appreciate this time, and I'm glad that we can have this candid conversation. A lot of things have come up, like you said, and we could go on talking and talking about all the things that affect women. And you can see that I'm based in Singapore, you're in the States, but there are common issues that women grapple with.
Yes, because we're both human. And we have humans all around the globe, and even though we're in different locations and we may have different hair color and eye color and whatever, it doesn't matter. We still have some commonality, that we're all people, and we have thoughts and we have feelings and we have needs, and those things are pretty universal.
Yes, amen to that.
Very good. Oh, well, thank you, Jenny. This has been an absolute pleasure.
Well, thank you, Linda. Thank you for having me.
Oh, in closing, I'd like to share a quote by psychologist Abraham Maslow. He said, in any given moment, we have two options: to step forward into growth or to step back into safety. Today, I invite you to step forward into growth. See you next time on Linda's Corner.